Welcome to iteration 3 of the CS160 tutorial. In this iteration, we will continue extending our Java program to address additional functional requirements from the tutorial assignment. Specific objectives of iteration 3 include adding Java code to the main class to satisfy functional requirement number 2. That requirement is reproduced here. The program must prompt for and read the full name, first, middle, and last, of the card holder as shown below. And we'll note that the requirement is not only to read the name, which is shown in the light green, but also to display the prompt, enter full name of card holder. We're also going to do something that's very common, and that's to add debug code so that we can tell whether or not certain portions of our logic are functioning as they should. So in this case, we're going to add code that displays the first, middle, and last names that we read in. Though not strictly a functional requirement, this will certainly give us an indication of whether or not the code we've written is correct. Finally, we're going to run the program and verify that the output produced by that debug code does contain the names input by the user. Thinking a little more about the kind of code we have to produce to address this functional requirement. Well, the first thing we're going to need are variables to hold the first, middle, and last names. And clearly, the values of these variables are strings. So we're going to need 3 declarations of string variables. Secondly, since we're reading from the keyboard, we're going to have to declare and instantiate a scanner instance. Third, we're going to have to add an output statement to produce the prompt. We're also going to need input statements to read the first, the middle, and the last names from the keyboard. For the debug code, we're going to need output statements to display the first, the middle, and the last names. So now that we've done some preliminary planning for our code design, let's return to our Java application and write the code that corresponds to this design. Here I've opened up our credit card payment analyzer Java program, and now we're going to begin translating our code design into the actual Java code. And this will be fairly straightforward. The first thing we said we had to do was to declare string variables to hold the first, middle, and last name. And you can see here that we already have designated a step in our algorithm where we need to place our variable declarations. So underneath this comment, I'm going to put a string declaration for the first name, one for the middle name, and one for the last name. Just to review, we do require that each variable declaration is placed on a separate line. The second thing we need to do is to declare and instantiate a scanner object to read data from the keyboard. Again, we'll note that we have from our algorithm design a step for doing precisely that. So underneath this comment, we'll declare and instantiate a scanner object. Now there are 2 ways to do this, and it's really personal preference how you'd like to do it. The first way is to actually do this in 2 separate steps. We can declare the scanner object, just like we did the string variables, and then we can instantiate it. And since we're reading from the keyboard, we're going to read from the default system dot in, and that input stream by default is associated with the keyboard. The second way we could do this is to combine the declaration and instantiation into one statement. And that's very common. Now I would note here that I've got these red squiggly lines and also this red X out here indicating that Eclipse doesn't seem to know what the scanner class is. Well, like many of the built-in Java classes, they're not immediately available to us. We have to use import statements. Eclipse can import those well-known classes for us. So I just clicked on the red X and got this pop-up menu, and I know that the scanner class is part of the java.util package. So I'll click on that, and I will note that up here at the top of my code, Eclipse has placed the required import statement. Okay, so I've declared my 3 string variables. I've declared and instantiated my scanner instance to read from the keyboard. Now I've got to display the prompt and read the values in. And again, we do have a step from our algorithm that describes precisely those 2 bits of functionality. So the first thing we'll do is we'll create an output statement that solicits the values. And the output statement we need in this case is a print. So I'm going to print, and then we can go over to our requirements, and I can just copy the necessary text from the requirements document and paste it in there. Note that I have placed explicitly the space after the text. Now we need to read in the first, middle, and last names. Now to do that, we're going to use a method from the scanner class that's used to read strings. Note when I use the scanner object variable and I press the period, up comes the pop-up menu that says, hey, Eclipse knows about all these scanner methods. Is there one in there that you want to use? Well, if I scroll down here, I note that I've got several here that return strings, and that's what I want to do. And the one I need is next. So I'm going to ask the keyboard, or the scanner class, to read in a value. That's going to return a string. And since that's the first one, that must be the first name. So I want to take the result of that and put it into the first name. In a similar way, I want to read the middle name and the last name. So I'm going to copy and paste that statement. So I get middle name and last name. Just a simple review about how the next method works. The next method will read characters up to it encounters a space or a new line. Since we know from the requirements that these names are separated by a space, successive invocations of next will read the successive strings associated with the name. Well, now what I want to do is I want to insert my debug code to ensure that we've read the name correctly. So I'm going to preface that with debug, so I know that this code is not really code that addresses requirements. I'm going to want to remove it later. And the simplest thing to do here is just print out the values of first name, middle name, and last name without any labels. We could add labels if we want. So I'm just going to do it like this. And I'll copy that statement 2 more times. So there's our debug output. There's one other line of code I want to add, and that is to explicitly close, that is to indicate I'm finished reading from the keyboard. So I use kb.close. And I'll put that right at the end of the main method. So now we've implemented all of our code design that we saw in the PowerPoint presentation, and we're ready to test this code. So let's go ahead and save our code, and we'll run it. So as before, we get the welcome message, and then immediately under the welcome message says enter the full name of the card holder, and we'll enter that as Carrie Lotsadet, just like the sample. And there we see that our debug code displayed Carrie Lotsadet. Now I'm pretty confident that this code is correct, but it's always good to test it out with more than one set of data. So let's use I'm a big spender. See if that also works. Okay, that's good. And what if we have a very simple name? Let's test with maybe just single letters for the first and middle names. Maybe you are broke. Let's see if that works. You are broke. Okay, now I'm fairly confident that I have addressed functional requirement 2.